Hi everybody, I'm Sanjana and welcome to my YouTube channel. In our previous video, we had discussed about configuration of InterVlan routing using multi-layer switch. The link has been shared in the description box below. In this module today, let's discuss about configuration of InterVlan routing using the concept of router on a stick. Let's get started with the lab. We have a very simple topology. I've just taken a switch connected to two PCs, Vlan 10 and Vlan 20, with the default gateway 192.168.10.10 because we have 10.1 assigned for the PC 0. Okay, and we have 20.1 for VLAN 20. This is our VLAN 20, and 20.10 for the default gateway, which we'll be configuring here. So all the default gateways are going to be configured on the sub interface here. We will have only one single interface, and this is going to be a trunk. So the connectivity between the switch and the router is a trunk. Okay, and we have also taken a laptop here for our Vlan 88. This is for our management Vlan. So what I would like to do is, from the laptop we will try to remotely access this switch from the laptop. So in order to do that, for the switch there needs to be an IP address, and this is the configuration that we would like to use here. For this port here, which is fast Ethernet 0/4, we'll have interface VLAN 88 and assign 88.2 because we are going to assign 88.1 for the laptop with a default gateway 88.10, which we'll be configuring on the sub interface on this router. Okay, and we will also need to specify a IP default gateway on this port here. Okay, in order to communicate from the switch. Okay, and we will also create VLANs on the switch and configure access port for all those ports which are connected to this PCs, and we'll create a native VLAN. So before we create a native VLAN, let's understand what is native VLAN. So a native VLAN is a VLAN which traverses a trunk port without a VLAN tag. We already know that from the PC to the switch, when the frames are traveling, so this will be a untagged frames. Okay, but from the switch, when it reaches the router on a trunk, the frames are always tagged. Okay, again, when the frames are moving away from the switch to the laptop, say here we have a end user device which is laptop, the frames are again untagged. So what happens to those frames which reaches the trunk link which does not have a tag? Okay, so so all those untagged frames are supposed to reach a VLAN, right? Because it cannot move on the trunk which is allowed for the tagged frames. So those untagged frames will get diverted to native VLAN, and here in this case we will take a VLAN 44, and that's what we'll configure the VLAN 44 on the trunk link. Okay, so let's see the configuration here. So this is the port here, fast Ethernet 0/4, and we will be configuring the native VLAN in this port, okay, which is a trunk port. And for those VLANs to be allowed, I have just taken a default. You can take VLAN 10, 20 or whatever VLANs that you want to allow, but in our lab today I will just take a range from VLAN 1 to VLAN 1005. Okay, let's get started with the configuration, and firstly, let's configure the VLANs on the switch. And the main reason why we are having this concept of InterVlan routing is, if we want to communicate from VLAN 10 to VLAN 20, which is in a different subnet, okay, so we will be using a router on a stick, unlike we had used multi-layer switch in our previous videos. Okay, so let's go to the switch. Configure terminal. VLAN 10. We'll create another VLAN, which is VLAN 20. And VLAN 44, I would like to give it a name. So name native. Okay. And we have one more VLAN 88, right? Because we have the management laptop. This is the VLAN 88. And we'll be configuring a SSH on the switch so that you can remotely access the switch with the help of the end user device, which is our laptop here. Okay, so the switch, and we'll give a name management. All right, so let's verify. Show VLAN brief. We see those ports are created 10, 20, 44, and 88. Now we need to allocate this port numbers also for these VLANs that we have created. Let's configure the ports. So configure terminal, interface, fast Ethernet 0/1. So between this port and this computer, it's a access port. So switch port mode access. Switch port access, this is in VLAN 10, right? So we'll say VLAN 10, exit. Okay, let's go to fast Ethernet 0/2. So interface fast Ethernet 0/2. Switch port mode access, switch port access, VLAN 20. Okay, exit. And you don't need to configure those port numbers here for the VLAN 44. So I'll just leave it blank because we are going to configure this VLAN 44 on the trunk. So we'll move to configure fast Ethernet 0/3 for VLAN 88. So interface fast Ethernet 0/3, switch port mode access, switch port access, VLAN 88. Okay, so that's with the configuration for the access port. Let's check show VLAN brief. You can see those ports here for the access. Okay, now the next step is we need to configure. Let's verify if the PCs have been configured with the IP address. On the management laptop, 88.1 and 88.10 is the default gateway, and we will configure 88.10 for the sub interface on the router. Okay, and let's see on this PC, it's 20.1 and 20.10 is the default gateway for the PC 0. 10.1 is the IP address assigned, and 10.10 for the default gateway, and all the default gateway is what I have written here. So that's what we will be configuring it on the router. Okay, so on the router, I have already turned on this port here. It's already in no shut command. Okay, so let's configure the IP address on this switch so that we can SSH later. Okay, to access this switch from the laptop. So let's go with the to the switch and assign the IP address for the interface VLAN 88. So configure terminal we have an interface VLAN 88. Okay, so IP address, we need to give the IP address. IP address, what we will give here, it's already 88.1, so for this we will say 88.2. okay, so 192.168. It is 88.2. okay, 88.2 with /24 for the subnet mask. And don't forget to give a IP default gateway. Okay, so this is a IP default. So for this 88.10 is the default gateway, and that's what we will give here is 192.168.88.10. okay, so we're done with the configuration of IP address on the interface VLAN 88 on the switch. So let's go ahead and configure native VLAN. Okay, so always remember, from the switch to the router on this interface, it needs to be a trunk. So let's configure trunk configuration on the switch. So what's the port number? It's fast Ethernet 0/4. So interface fast Ethernet 0/4, switch port mode trunk. Okay, switch port trunk native VLAN, and our native VLAN is 44, right? And we need to allow certain VLANs to pass through this switch, and let's go ahead and allow those VLANs. So in this case, I'm going to take VLAN from the range 1 to 1005. Okay, exit. If you want to see the running configuration, show run. You can see those VLANs have been configured. VLAN 10, VLAN 20, VLAN 88. And we have fast Ethernet 0/4 for trunk native VLAN. Okay, that's all with this. So each of the IP address interface on have been assigned with a IP address. So interface 30 interface VLAN 30 has been assigned IP address, which is 192.168.88.2. Oh, this is a, you can remove this. This was something that was pre-configured, not required. So we have interface 88 for the IP address 88.2 and default gateway 88.10. Okay, so next step is let's configure each of the sub interfaces to the default gateways which is present on these PCs. So that's what I'm going to take it, but rather than separately assigning IP address and creating separate links, we have just taken one single link, and hence that's the reason it's called as a router on a trunk. Okay, so we just have one port. So that port is gigabit Ethernet 0/0. interface gigabit 0/0, and we'll say .10, okay, and IP address is the default gateway for this is 10.10, okay, 10.10. Let's assign the 192.168.10.10 with /24 subnet mask. Okay, exit. Now let's go with another sub interface 20.20 for 20.10, that is this gateway here. So we have the same port. I'm going to take 0/0.20, IP address 192.168.20.10, right? Yeah, so 20.10. So /24 is the subnet mask. Exit. Okay. We have one more interface here, .44 for the native VLAN. So 44.10 is the default gateway. So interface gigabit port 0/0.40. IP address 192.168. Okay, it's .44, right? It's okay. We'll just put that as a .40 here. So what's the IP address? 44.10. 44.10. It's /24 IP address. Okay. It's giving us an error. IP routing on a LAN sub interface is allowed if that sub interface is already configured as part of ISL or IEEE. Let's try this. Interface. Let's take it 44 itself. Gigabit Ethernet 0/0.44. So IP address 192.168.44.10. 255.255.255.0. Okay, exit. And we have one more .88 here for this default gateway on the management laptop. So interface gigabit Ethernet 0/0.88. IP address 192.168.88.1 with /24 subnet mask. Okay, exit. Okay, let's check on the router. Show run. You have okay for the VLAN 10, for the VLAN 20, native VLAN, and for the management VLAN. Okay, so the sub interfaces are configured on the router. Now let's check if you can ping from the VLAN 10 to VLAN 20 and see if that works. So I'm from PC 0 will reach PC 1 and it's 20.1 is the IP address. Ping 192.168.20.1. Okay, so initially you're getting 25% packet loss, but that's fine. You're able to reach from VLAN 10 to VLAN 20. So let's ping it again, 192.168.20.1. Okay, it worked. And similarly, from PC1, let's try to see if you can reach PC0 from VLAN 20. Let's try to ping VLAN 10. So ping 192.168.10.1. There it is. Okay, so we are able to reach between different VLANs using router on a stick. But here I've taken a management VLAN also, so that we will configure SSH here. This is just a small command that I have taken, okay, for demonstration purpose. It's very easy. So from the laptop, we'll access this switch. Let's configure SSH on this switch. So before we configure SSH, we need to rename the switch. So I have already renamed it as SW, but if you want to rename it, you can say conft host name. So we'll keep it as a switch. Okay, we'll call it a switch 1. Okay. Yeah, and I have not enabled the password. So you can say enable password, and we'll keep the password name as Cisco. Okay. And domain name, let's give it a domain name. Okay, cisco.com. Username. So username, I will give it as Sanjana. Privilege access 15, and secret. Secret, let's say hello. Okay. You can give your name if you want to write username. So I'm just giving user 1 here. You can write your name or any username that you want to specify. Okay. And crypto key generate RSA general keys model as 1024. Okay. And now let's configure the line VTY 0 login local. So since this is not a telnet, this is a SSH. So you can say transport input SSH. Okay. And if you want to give a version, you can say IP SSH version 2. So that's about the configuration of SSH on the switch. You can exit out, and let's try to if you want to exit out of these and see if the enable password works. So we have taken enable. It's asking for the password because our enable password is Cisco. That's what we have configured. So I'll say Cisco, and there it is. Okay, so now from the laptop, let's access this switch. SSH. So here you need to give the username. So I'll have given my name here. And the IP address is what for the destination? It's 192.168.88.2. So we'll take 192.168.88.2. It's asking for the password. So password here is your user password, and here I've taken hello. So that's going to be hello. And you're able to access the switch. You can exit out of this, okay, and that still works. And if you want to exit in, you want to log in back, so SSHL. Password is again hello. Okay, that worked. So just to rephrase, what we have done today is we have configured InterVlan routing using the router on a stick, where we have taken just one single link and we configured trunk between the switch and the router, and from the switch to this end user devices we configured these ports for access port, okay, and we configured native VLANs on this port which is connected on the trunk link towards the router. On the switch is where we configured the native VLAN, and we allowed the range of VLANs that we would like to, and in our case we have taken 1 to 1005, and you can take those VLANs if you would like to allow any particular VLANs, you can do that. And in order to access the multi-layer switch from the laptop, I have configured SSH on this switch, so we were able to reach the switch remotely from the management VLAN. Okay, so this completes the lab on router on a stick. I hope that this video has been helpful to you all. Please don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and see you in the next video.